Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jay Johnson. I'm really excited to be here with you on day 2 of the MMK Systems Booking Manager Summit to talk to you today about dealing with difficult customers. So this will be a little bit interactive, and I'm going to ask you to, if you have a difficult customer that you've ever dealt with, go ahead and click a little yes into the chat box. We're just going to tally those up and see if you're just like everybody else, that we all have that difficult customer that we're going to have to deal with at some point in time. So today, we're going to take a behavioral approach and look at ways in which you can make better relationships with your customers through a process called behavioral intelligence. So my name is Jay Johnson. I'm the CEO of Coeus Creative Group from the United States of America, and I am excited to be here with you today to talk about this. This is something that I'm truly passionate about. My TEDx talk in 2018 was one of the ways in which we introduced this concept of behavioral intelligence to the larger world. Very simply, behavioral intelligence is the skills and abilities to accurately explain existing behaviors, so to be able to identify why things are happening or what are the drivers behind it, to be able to predict future behaviors. That's really about being able to make deductions and noticing patterns and habits, to be able to influence other people's behaviors. That's about the external control, how we can actually create better relationships. We do that in an ethical way. And then finally, how to control your own behaviors, which is one of the most challenging parts, but it is truly essential for leadership, for customer service, for sales, or any other technical skills. So hopefully today, you're going to walk out of here with some real tactics and tools that are going to empower you to create those better relationships. Why do we focus on behavior? Because we truly believe that behavior is the core of all success and failure. I want you to think about a project maybe you've worked on before, maybe a successful project, something that went really, really well, just seemed to flow, everything was easy, everything seemed to work out great. More than likely, you're going to be able to identify a number of different behaviors that were in there that were trust promoting, that were positive, that were pro-social and pro-consequential. But if we switch gears and maybe think about a project that did not go so well, my guess is that you're going to be able to look back and identify problems with behaviors amongst people in the team or even amongst yourself. And that's really why we believe that behavior is the core of all success and failure. So without further ado, let's get into this concept. I want to take a second here, and if you would indulge me for just a moment, I'm going to ask you to do this with me from the comfort of your own home, but I want to demonstrate something incredibly powerful. So behavioral intelligence is built on psychology, neuroscience, and communications as disciplines. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I want you to put your hand out in front of you, wherever you're sitting nice and comfortably. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine that you have a lemon inside of your hand. Now, this only works if you really focus. I want you to focus incredibly hard on your hand to imagine that there's a lemon. If you rub your fingers on the edge of it, you can feel the creases in its skin. If you bounce it up and down, you can actually feel the weight of the lemon in your hand. You can feel its shape. I want you to bring the lemon to your nose and just give it a smell. You can actually smell the lemon scent. Now, I want you to take a big bite into the lemon. Yeah. All right. Now, I don't get to see you, but when I've done this on a number of different stages, this is what I often get to see as I see people say, all right, Jay, I'm following along with you. Okay, not bad so far. I've got this. And then when you bring it to your nose, you bring it up real slow like you're not really sure what I'm about to tell you to do next. And then when I ask you to bite into the lemon, that's when your face will scrunch up and you'll make that lemon face. Now, interestingly enough, when we put somebody on an fMRI and we can actually read the parts of the brains that are lighting up, interestingly enough, whether or not you have a lemon in your hand doesn't matter. People that do that and experience that, the same part of their brain actually lights up as the people that have a real lemon in their hand. What a powerful, powerful organ the brain is. It can create a reality from something that doesn't exist. In fact, a lot of people even experience their taste buds and they experience their salivation occurring when they bite into this fake lemon. So what does that mean in a larger context? Why do I have you do this silly exercise while sitting at home? Well, number one, Whatever situation is occurring in your customer's mind feels real to them. Whether they're unhappy about a situation that occurred, whether they're frustrated, whether they're anxious, it feels real and it manifests through their body. It also means that if you imagine a customer to be difficult, that your body will physiologically react to that customer in a difficult way. You'll be more aggressive or you'll be more defensive. Our mind is so powerful, it can create a reality out of nothing. I'm going to give you a quick for instance here. Tiger Woods, one of the best golfers, and he's made a comeback recently. He used to go out, and before a tournament, he would go out and he would practice, and he would swing the club, and he'd play the entire round on the course. Interestingly, when he finished, he would go back to his hotel room, he'd shower, and then he'd lay in the bed, and he would play the entire course again in his mind. His dad was with him often, and ironically, his dad started to time it because he was like, this is strange, it seems very similar. So he started to time how long it took him to physically play, but then also how long it took him to mentally replay the entire round in his head. If you want to take a guess in a chat how close that were, I'll give you a second to do so before I finish this off with a case study. This was so fascinating that ultimately a couple of research scientists stepped back and said, let's see what happens when we test. Can somebody get better just by practicing in their mind? They took golfers and they made 3 different groups, Group A, B, and C. In Group A, for 2 weeks, they practiced 2 hours a day. In Group B, they practiced for 2 weeks, 2 hours a day, but they only practiced in their mind. And in Group C, they didn't practice at all. So they measured them before and after this research study. Before the research study, after the research study, Group A, who practiced physically 2 hours a day for the 2 weeks, of course, they improved their game by nearly 50%. Their shots were 50% better by the time that they finished. In Group B, where they practiced just in their mind, interestingly, their shots improved by 33%. Incredible. All they practiced was in their mind, the mechanics of what they should be doing. And in Group C, the test group with 0 practice, didn't improve at all. In fact, they got a little bit worse. Now, interestingly enough, Tiger Woods, within 7 minutes. So if you said within 7 minutes, that is how close his physical play matched his mental play. Our brain is so powerful that we can create an experience even if something's not there. Now, I want you to think about that in terms of how you're managing and dealing with the relationships that you have with your client. What are they thinking to create? I'm going to help you today, hopefully, get into their mind just a little bit better so you can create the experience for them that you want to. So let's talk about the reasons why customers ultimately become difficult. There's namely 5 main reasons that create conflicts between service providers and customers. Number 1, you may have guessed it, is actually cost. Interestingly enough, studies show that in the United States, cost and financial resources is the number 1 reason for divorce. Who says money can't buy happiness? But at the end of the day, we see that a lot of conflict comes from financial resources. Ultimately, the reason that is because financial resources provide us a sense of stability and security. It goes back to our evolutionary psychology where we need to have a roof over our head and food on the table in order for us to survive. We're going to talk about the brain and psychology and how that plays out in just a few. But cost is one of the number 1 areas where customer relationships break down. Second is time. People find their time to be valuable. And if you don't believe that, if you've ever been on the other end of somebody wanting something so quickly and immediately and not taking no for an answer, even though you've said, hey, I'm going to get back to you by the end of the week is far too long for that person because in their mind, the only thing that you're working on is their problem. And that's really frustrating if you're on the side of customer service or if you're on the side of dealing with that customer because you know that that's not the only problem that you're dealing with that week. So time can be a huge conflict point in between customer relationships. Third is quality. This is where the customer finds value. This is going to be somewhere where they say, I had a wonderful experience with your brand, your product, your services, or if they didn't, if they felt like it came up a little bit lacking. Now, in many instances, that quality question is very subjective. It's not, so me and 5 friends could go and do the exact same activity, and we're all going to experience it very, very differently. And at that point in time, it becomes very difficult for you to gauge what is quality or a quality experience. So hopefully, I'm going to be able to help you identify how that customer would define quality, and then you'll be able to communicate directly to that. 4, communication. One of the biggest frustrations is the lack of communication between service provider and customer. Anytime that there's a fault in communications, whether it's a missed email, it's a missed phone call, it's a non-return, that is something that takes the relationship from here to here instantly. And part of that is not necessarily just the communication, but think of a friend that you've called to ask out to dinner, and the friend says, "Oh, I'm not available. I can't do it this time." And then you call that friend again and you say, "Hey, you want to go out to dinner?" And they say, "No, actually, I'm really, really busy." The third time you call, they say, "I'm sorry, I'm super busy." Well, guess what? After that, you're going to start wondering whether you're going to communicate back and forth. And the customer is oftentimes going to feel that same relationship if they're asking a question and they're not getting a response back, or they're not getting a response back in a timely fashion that meets their needs. 5th, and finally, is trust. Trust is one of the most important aspects of any customer-client relationship, and ironically enough, it's one of the most fragile. If you think about any kind of relationship, maybe you've been in a relationship and the relationship was smooth sailing for 10 years, and then all of a sudden, the other person in that relationship violates your trust. Immediately, we start thinking back, what about all those other instances where we've had those interactions, and we start to wonder, were they lying then? Were they deceiving us then? And that trust is broken, and then it takes a long time to rebuild that trust. That's one of the huge challenges we face when dealing with difficult customers, because in their perspective, and that's what we got to focus on, is their perspective, trust has been broken. Especially when they're creating some kind of complaint or some kind of social media frenzy or anything else like that where they're damaging your brand or identity. So those are some of the main conflict points. If you look at most of the times that a customer becomes difficult, you're going to find that it's one or more of those areas that truly creates the challenges. So we're going to call out a couple of behaviors. This is one of the things that we do in behavioral economics. We see a behavior, we identify it, and then we call it out. So I'm going to name off some behavioral characteristics of potential customers that just maybe you've interacted with. Before we do that, I want to put you through a thought experiment, though. I want you to imagine yourself. You just bought the brand new Samsung or iPhone, whatever your preference is. You just bought this beautiful new phone, paid top dollar for it, waited in line for it, and you take it home. You take it home, you start fiddling with it, because we all know what we do. We go in there and we try to figure out all the settings and everything else, and you realize that there's something wrong with it. You're not sure what, but there's something wrong with this phone. So you make a phone call back to the store that you got it from. You wait on hold for 15 minutes until somebody can actually come and maybe diagnose your problem. You tell them what it is, and they say, "You know what, there's nothing we can do for you. You're going to need to call the manufacturer." So you're a little frustrated. You get off the phone, you call the manufacturer. Again, another 15-minute wait, and somebody gets on the phone and says, "You know what, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to help you. You should take it down the street to the store that you just came from." Now, at this point in time, your blood is probably boiling over and you are frustrated, and you walk back into that store, and whoever that first person is that you're interacting with, they're going to take a brunt of that stress and frustration. And in many times, we find ourselves that first person or that first line of defense when we're dealing with a difficult customer. Now, if you think about that thought experiment and going through it, you have issues of cost because it's a high-profile item. You have issues of time because their time was wasted. You have issues of communication because there was a breakdown, obvious issues of trust. So we can identify those different points that we just saw in those conflicts. But let's look specifically at the behaviors that we see from a number of different customers. First is the not listener. This customer, it doesn't matter what you tell them. You can tell them over and over and over again. Guess what? They're not going to get it because they're not hearing what you have to say. The second, The curmudgeon. This is the person that tells you how good it used to be and how everything was great so long ago, but you've really let things go, and there's just no way that you're going to be able to surmount to what it used to be. That's the curmudgeon that just remembers a little bit too much of history. The bully. This is the person that's going to straight up be aggressive and direct and really try to be forceful with whatever it is that they're having an issue with. The manipulator. This is the person that's always going to be doing whatever they can to get the best deal. They're going to try to get a next discount, a free trip, or something of that nature. They're going to try to manipulate the strings to give themselves an advantage. The snark. And just in case that doesn't translate particularly well, the smart ass. This is the person who ultimately will just make snarky or smart aleck comments on the phone with you via email or anything else. And that's the look, that look on that dog's face, that's the look they get. They get this kind of like, I'm so smart, and you just want to give them a smack. The socializer. This is the person that calls you and literally has nothing better to do with their time than to sit and talk with you. They probably tell you so many different stories that you never actually had any interest in hearing, but they're just chewing up all of your time because they're socializing. It's almost as though they're bored. The opinionated. Well, this is the person that it doesn't matter what you do, they're always going to have an opinion, and it tends to often skew to the negative side. But they're going to have an opinion about how you should do this or why you should do it this way. Have you thought about this? And they're going to tell you how to do your job, probably more so than even your supervisor, boss, or the CEO of your company does. The condescender. And this is that person that's just looking down their nose. You can literally feel it. If it's a phone call, you can feel them looking down. You're like, oh, that's how you're going to handle this situation? And it's just, you can sense it in the tone. It's just so frustrating. You don't really want to even talk to that person any longer. The yeller. This is the person that cannot control the volume of their voice. They're just going to yell and scream and be so loud that if it's on the phone or if it's face-to-face, that it's almost just like you're getting blown back by the volume and the wind being generated. And in COVID times, hopefully they have the mask on. The gimme pig. This is the person that's like, gimme, 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 gimme. They're always going to be asking for more. If you give them A, they're going to ask for A, B, and C. It's almost like if you give a mouse a cookie. If you've ever read that children's book, he's going to ask for a glass of milk, and then he's going to ask for a napkin, and he's going to ask for your car keys, your wallet, your home, and everything else that comes along with it. That's the gimme pig, always looking for more. The exaggerator. This is a person who's like, I have called you 6,000 times and you have not answered one of my issues at all. And they just exaggerate excessively about what challenges they're facing or what impacts that you're having on their time, cost, value, quality, trust. The negotiator, and yes, that is an image of children. Children are I don't have any, but I have witnessed my nephew, expert negotiator. I was actually over at my brother's house one night having dinner. It was about 9 o'clock, and it's time for the kids to go to bed. And my nephew comes out, and he goes, Dad, listen. If you let me stay up for just a half hour longer, tomorrow I will go to school. It's just like, what a brilliant negotiation, giving up something that he's already going to do anyways. So the negotiator's always going to be looking for the opportunity to be able to negotiate that next best deal or a better deal. The constant contact. This is the person that sends you a text, and as you're trying to respond to that text, you get an email. And then you get over to the email and you're trying to respond to that email and the phone's ringing. And you try to answer the phone and there's a knock on the door. And all of a sudden they're like, did you get my text, my email, my phone call? I've been trying to reach you all day. It's like 7 minutes. It's been 7 minutes. But the moment that you don't respond within those first 30 seconds, they're going to send a second email, third, fourth, fifth. And all of a sudden your inbox looks like the ground zero of 600,000 different emails from this single person. That's the constant contact. And then finally, we have the oddball. This is the person that you just can't quite figure out. And you're like, I'm not real sure where you're coming from. Hopefully, after today, you'll have a little bit of an idea how to crack the oddball. But this is the person that really marches to their own drum. So my guess is that if you've interacted with customers or even other difficult people, my guess is that you probably just put names and faces with a whole host of those different people, that you know who they are or that you've experienced those behaviors. So in behavioral economics, which I focus on, we call out those behaviors, we look for them. And part of the reason that we do that is we really want to be able to separate the person from the behavior. While the behavior might be bad, that does not necessarily make the person bad. And if we can create some space between how somebody chooses to behave and who they are as a person, it does help to make them a little less difficult. But it also gives us the opportunity to roll into some of these tactics. Now, my job and what I want to do is I want to fill your toolbox with a number of different ways, empower you to be able to manage these difficult customers, these difficult clients. But just like a toolbox, if I want to put a nail into the wall and I pull out a chainsaw, it's going to create a mess. So you have to be able to select which tool is the right tool for the job. Sometimes we make a mistake. To a nail, or to a hammer, everything's a nail. Sometimes we make that mistake, and that's okay, because we can always pull out another tactic. When we think about dealing with difficult people, difficult customers, we always want to remember the anticipation of future interaction and the impact that it has on our brand. If we know we're going to have to deal with that person again in the future, if we know that that person could have a damaging impact on our brand, we need to make sure that we are taking that on. The other reason that we take on these types of difficult people is because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's your heart attack. And other people's bad behavior should not be the cause of your heart attack. You all seem like beautiful, nice people, so I don't want that to happen to you. Let's fill the toolbox. First, stay calm. Okay? I know it's so much easier said than done. Be like, stay calm. Be like, I'm calm. What do you want from me? I'm really calm right now. But I'm going to actually teach two techniques that you probably learned in grade school, but I'm going to talk to you about the neuroscience of why they work. So I want you to go back years and years and years. Now, a lot of people, when they think about like human history, they think that they go back to like 10,000 years ago. But actually, human beings have been on this planet for more than 300,000 years. Now, civilization, the agricultural revolution, that's where you're talking 15, 20, 30,000 years ago. Long time. But that gives us 270,000 years of psychological evolution, and a big part of our brain that evolved during that time is called the limbic system. That is your fight, flight, or faint response system. It's the part of your brain that keeps us alive, that helps us survive. It was the part of the brain that was on high alert looking around for that lion that was going to be chasing us. Now, here is the best and worst part about that part of the brain. When we are stressed, when we're anxious, when we're frustrated, when we're sad, any of those high stress, high anxiety feelings, our brain floods with cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine. Now, the challenge with that is that cortisol makes us dumb. It literally makes us dumber. It makes us non-rational actors. Why? Because cortisol shuts down other parts and systems of the body. For example, your metabolism, the part that digests your food, when you're under severe anxiety, your metabolism does not work or function properly. This is also why people sometimes gain weight when they're highly stressed. They think it's from the eating, but it's actually the body's not processing the food. Why? Because you don't need to process food when you're running from the lion. You don't want to be the lion's food. Other systems that shut down, your immune system shuts down. This is why people get sick when they're anxious. Cortisol shuts the immune system. You don't need that energy going to immunity when you're running from the lion. The libido, I don't need to get into that, but also the cerebral cortex. That's the rational, thoughtful, logical, thinking part of the brain. It shuts down from cortisol when we're running from the lion because all we need to do is run. Unfortunately, that 270,000 years of evolution has not well prepared us for the modern society. Interestingly, if you put, again, those neuroscientific fMRI brain readers on somebody and you show them a lion and you show them public speaking, the same parts of the brain light up. They don't know the difference. It's all fear, and it all has the same kind of impact. So when you're dealing with that difficult customer, client, whomever it is, and that anxiety, that frustration, that anger ticks up, we are actually losing brain power. So let me give you a for instance. I guarantee you've experienced this. You're in an argument with somebody. You're fighting back and forth, and you're having this argument, and you're back and forth with them, and you're like, fine, I'm done with this. And you turn and you start to walk just a little bit away. And about 5 steps out of that argument, you're like, oh, I should have said this. If I would have said this, I would have totally got them. Or you get 5 steps away and you go, ooh, I shouldn't have said that. I'm probably going to be sleeping on the couch tonight. So that is an example of the transition from the limbic system back to your rational, logical thinking brain. Here are 2 techniques to help you reduce that limbic reaction. They're super simple. The first, take a deep breath. So I'm going to walk you through this, okay? I want you to notice where your body is. Play along with me here at home. Play along with me. Notice your body. Notice where you have tension, chest, shoulders, legs, wherever it is. I want you to put your feet firmly on the floor. Bring your hands together. Rub them together just like this. I want you to put them like right on the top of your legs. We're going to take 3 deep breaths. Notice your body now. First breath in. Hold it. And out through the mouth. Second breath in. Hold it. And out through the mouth. Third breath in. Hold it. And out through the mouth. Notice where your body's at now. You might actually be feeling a little bit of euphoria because your body is not used to getting that much oxygen into its system. Like I could actually feel my heart rate slowing down. Imagine if I gave this presentation to you I was just doing that the whole time and talking to you. You'd probably be asleep by now. So number 1, take a deep breath. Now, if you're in the middle of a interaction with that difficult customer and you start going, you're going to look really weird. So prop number 2, take a recess. Any time that you find yourself in that situation, you might just want to take a step back. Get yourself out. Give yourself that 10 steps. How do we do that when we're interacting with the customer? Number 1, you may think that this creates more problems, but it actually doesn't. We've studied this across insurance providers that are dealing with difficult clients on a daily basis in the United States. Put them on hold. Not for long. You don't put them on hold for a super long time, for just a few brief moments for you to take a breath and relax yourself. But one of the other things is when we take this recess, when we count to 10, essentially, it gives us the opportunity to reset our limbic systems. Then we can approach this from a more rational, logical approach. And that's really how we're going to be able to resolve those conflicts. So just take that into mind. Take a deep breath and count to 10. If you are face-to-face with somebody, take them and say, hey, you know what? Why don't we grab a water real quick? We'll continue this conversation in just a moment. Or if you're on the phone with them, you might take that and say, listen, I'm going to actually go and check on something for just a moment. Would you please consider holding for just a second? And then you step back, you reprocess, you come back more logical, and it's going to make a world of difference in dealing with those difficult people and customers. 2, start with de-escalation techniques. So whether you're face-to-face or whether this is Zoom or anything else, one of the most powerful de-escalation techniques, we teach this to the FBI, we teach this to the police forces, how to reduce conflict to social psychologists that are interacting with patients that may be very, very high-strung or have high anxiety. We teach them how to use their voice, and we actually show them how to slow their voice down just ever so slightly. And we teach them how to soften their face and how they just open up ever so slightly. And you'll notice that I dropped the tone of my voice just a little bit, but this is a de-escalation technique. And again, if I do this the whole time, you're going to be asleep, so I'm not going to go there. But think about an argument that maybe you got into, and it could have been over anything. It could have been over jelly on, whether you wanted grape jelly or strawberry jelly. And then you raise your voice. And then what happens? The other person raises theirs. And then you raise yours. And then they raise theirs. And then all of a sudden you're yelling at each other over something that was so simple because we have what's called mirror neurons. This is how we interact with people. So we understand that when somebody smiles, it's very difficult for us not to smile in return. When somebody is high in their voice or high in their pitch, high in excitement, it's hard not to feel that excitement. When somebody goes into that low area, it's hard not to follow them into that low area. We can actually de-escalate a number of conflicts just by using our voice and softening our body language. So be mindful. This is something that you have control over. When you're in that interaction, that frustration builds up, we take a deep breath and we say, listen, we're going to take this in a different path. How might we be able to work more collectively on this in the future? We'll get into that as a strategy as well. So managing your tone and expression. One of my favorite things to study is body language. And inevitably, you can see when people turn their body, their shoulders, when they engage forward or lean back, and it's even visible via Zoom. So if you're conducting a lot of your business on video conferencing, that's okay. Watch how somebody leans into the camera or pulls back. Watch how their shoulders shrug. Watch how they blade or turn their head. All of those are going to be indications of what kind of mental state that your person that you're working with is in. But at the same time, be mindful of your own expressions, your own tone, the own speed of voice. Notice if you're starting to feel that frustration, and at any point in time, be willing to take that break. If you're experiencing that frustration, if you're getting railed with a number of different, if they're yelling or they're arguing or anything else, remember that they are not at their best and you're not going to be at your best either because of that anxiety. So take a step back. It's worth every second that you do. All right. Acknowledge the customer's concern. I'm going to tell you a fun story. About 10 years ago, I was working with a psychologist named Dr. John Malarnik as we were exploring some different opportunities together. And he has a behavioral styles profile, and I have what's called the behavioral elements profile. So we actually test people's preferences towards behavior. Are you a fire that's more direct and aggressive? Are you an air that's more thoughtful? An earth that's more grounded? Or an air, water that's more collaborative, right? So that's ours. But we were working together, and I got to sit in one of his workshops. Well, in this workshop, I measured on his scale, and I was partnered up with somebody, and we were going to do a role-playing exercise. So this person is going to communicate to me about their day. And then I was told, just respond however you normally would. I said, no problem. So the person comes over, and she sits down, and she's like, it's been a really, really rough day. You know, I had to pick up the kids. I had to do the grocery shopping. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. And it was a really, really sad day, quite frankly. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, no worries. I got this. Tomorrow, I'll pick up the kids. I'll help you with the groceries. We can do this. I'll even take you out to dinner. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I got you. I'll solve it all. So we finish up the exercise, we go back to the main room, and we're in a debriefing. And my partner raises their hand. And at this point, I'm excited. I'm like, I nailed this. Like, I'm giving myself a high five. I'm thinking this is going to go really well. My partner raises their hand. I'm like, here it comes. Jay's the best listener, whatever it is. And my partner, is called on, and she goes, I just didn't feel like Jay really understood what I was going through. And I'm like, what do you mean I didn't understand? Like, I helped you. I fixed all the things. He's like, yeah, I just didn't really feel heard. And it was so peculiar to me. So actually, we get to do this a second time, and I'm with somebody else. This time, I'm given a script. So they tell me about their day, and I'm looking at my script, and I have to say things like, well, of course that would be difficult. If I was in that position, I'd be frustrated too. Well, yeah, of course you have the right to feel that way. A little piece of me inside was dying because I am a problem solver. Like, I was looking to solve this problem, and I desperately wanted to help. But unfortunately, as I'm reading through this and I'm just feeling like a nauseousness in my stomach, I'm like, I am failing. I am totally failing at this. We go back to the main room, and like, I've got my head down. I'm like, I'm in front of one of my colleagues, and this is going to be bad. And we go in there, and my partner raises their hand, and like, I can feel the dread. I can feel the sweat like pouring on the side of my face. And I'm like, here we go. I'm going to get crucified again. And then she said, Jay was the best listener. And I'm like, okay, I don't understand this. What just happened here? And all of a sudden, it became very evident to me, and this is something that I studied afterwards. Acknowledgement is one of the most powerful tools that you have in your arsenal. Just the mere fact of acknowledging the other person's feelings, the other person's situation. You may not agree with it. They may be out in left field, but that doesn't mean that they're not experiencing it or feeling it. Remember the lemon. It doesn't have to be real for it to be very real to them, and vice versa. So when we think of acknowledgement, the University of Michigan Health Systems. So in the United States, some people probably know this, a little lawsuit happy on occasion, especially in the healthcare industry and malpractice. The University of Michigan took a new approach a number of years ago in their patient-centered approach. And what they did was they would acknowledge the feelings or the situation that the person found themselves in. That reduced their malpractice lawsuits by 33%, 1/3. Now, when you think about that, the average malpractice lawsuit is settled out at around $2 million to $3 million. Reducing that by 33% simply by acknowledging and apologizing is one of the most powerful tools that you can do. If your customer, even a difficult one, feels heard, respected, and valued, it just might be enough for them to let go. And it's an amazing tool for you to be able to utilize. Ask questions for understanding. And I'm going to give you some examples because there are terrible questions like, why do you think you deserve that? Not a good question. That's not the kind of question that we want. Or, what the hell is wrong with you? Not a good question. We want different questions. So I'm going to teach you about calibrated questions. These are what and how questions. When we think about calibrated questions, the nice thing about them is they're very difficult to answer yes or no to. What they're doing is they're actually forcing the other person to use their rational, logical thinking brain. So for example, what about this issue is important to you? That might elicit a response. They may get a frustrated response. That's where you have to use that control mechanism to keep yourself in check. But if they say, well, you know, what's important to me is that you guys acknowledge the fact that I didn't get, okay, you just gave me all the information that you didn't get what? Time, quality, cost, trust, communication. You just told me how now I can communicate to you or what's going to be important. And I can make those types of responses when I learn from the customer utilizing these calibrated questions. Another example would be, how can I make this better for you? Ultimately, what you're doing is asking them to solve the problem. Now, if they come back and say, well, I want you to give me your business, and be like, how would you actually think that that might, we probably don't want to go down that road. So we know that sometimes the customer is going to ask for things that we can't give them. Okay, that's where we might transition with something like at the end. Well, how can we look at this in a completely different light? What if we were able to do X rather than Y? And we're going to pivot and transition with another calibrated question. Now, human beings, we do binaries, right? It's left or right, up or down. When there's two options presented, we don't always think about the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth option. So that's something that you can utilize in this strategy to really set the stage. Well, instead of X, we could go with Y. Would that be something that would accommodate your time, your value, your communication, whatever those markers are? Another tactic that I'm going to teach you is called labeling. Labeling is such a powerful tool. And part of what it is really just calling out. Again, we're going to call out what the behaviors are. If I see that you're frustrated, labeling the behavior, and ultimately what I'm going to do is detect it. So I see that you're frustrated. I can see that this conversation is incredibly frustrating to you. And then I'm just going to be quiet. They're going to tell you so much more than, yeah, it is. They're going to say, yeah, it's really frustrating because I don't feel like you're listening to, oh, now we just understood. They're feeling that value. They're feeling that lack of communication. Yeah, it's really frustrating because I spent so much time on, okay, now we've learned a little bit more about the customer. This labeling, detect, label, silence will allow them to get out what's on their chest, but it's also calling it out. Now, if you label wrong, that's okay. They will correct you. People love correcting us, especially when we're on the customer service side. So if I say, I sense some frustration in this conversation, or if I say something like, it appears you really love this aspect of the plan. Yeah, that's okay, but I really like this part. Oh, they're going to continue to give us more and more information when we utilize this labeling technique. So when we do this, we can use these tools in conjunction with each other too. So we label, we wait, and then we use a calibrated question to bring them back to the logical side. Reflective listening. This is something where when somebody is communicating to us, they, again, want to feel acknowledged, they want to feel heard, they want to feel like they have been listened to. Reflective listening is the art of taking what was communicated and then repackaging it and giving it back to them. So let me give you a quick example of this. If they come in and they say, I'm really frustrated right now because this isn't really fair and you're not willing to give me a discount. Okay, let me reflectively listen. What I'm hearing is that your budget may not account for the cost of our services or our products, and you're feeling a little bit frustrated because I'm not able to provide the discount that you're looking for. And then I'm quiet. I've just told them. If they turn around and say, that's right, or yeah, exactly, now they are going to feel acknowledged, they're going to feel heard. And if you're wrong in your reflection, they're going to tell you. And then we reflectively listen again. Ultimately, what we're looking for is that person to give us an indication that we have spot on nailed exactly what their challenge or what their frustration is. After that, once we're connected, once we've built that rapport, that trust, that relationship back, that we hear each other, now we can look at different ways in which we can solve the problem. Because most of the time, when they're coming in and asking for something, it's not exactly something that we can give, or it's not always in that case. We can't fix it sometimes just by discounting or giving them the next one for free or whatever it is. Really, we need to be able to connect with them as a human. One of the ways in which we can do that is utilizing inclusive language. I want you to think about a movie in which case aliens have come from outer space down into the atmosphere and start attacking all the different places. All of a sudden, everybody on the planet forgets all their differences, comes together as one tribe to defeat this external enemy. I want you to think about that because this is actually something that occurs naturally within the human psychology. Is we understand from that evolutionary psychology side that together in a collective tribe, we have a better opportunity of survival than if we are off isolated. So utilizing inclusive language brings that person into your tribe. Well, let's see how we might be able to do this or how we might be able to fix this together. Are you willing to work with me in order to be able to solve this? Yes, now you're using that inclusive language. They're a part of your tribe. The problem is not the person. The problem's not you. The problem's out there. And if I create this tribe, we can look at that problem, rally around our flag, and address that problem together, rather than it being an interaction that is me versus you. Now it's us versus the challenge. Utilizing inclusive language triggers specific elements inside of the psychological that ultimately will bring people into that space of tribe. Focus on positive solution language. This is another tactic. Don't necessarily dwell on the things that you can't do. Focus more on the things that you can do. So if they say, well, I want the next trip free, don't say, I can't do that. I won't do that. We won't do that. Because you could. It's not a good business model per se. So what I would say is, well, one of the things that we might be able to do for you is offer X. Instead of saying no, we're going to reposition or reframe the communication to things that you can do. And if you have 2 or 3 of those things that you can do and offer them as a choice, now you're also tapping into the intrinsic psychology of freedom. We want to be able to make a choice. Let me tell you what I can offer you. I can offer you this, or I can offer you this, or I can offer you this. Which one of those seems to solve your issue the best? And then at that point in time, they'll say, well, I don't think any of them do exactly what I want, but this one's okay. Now we know which direction to go, but we have to retain our cognitive control in order to be able to execute that. But talk about positive solutions rather than saying what you can't do for that difficult customer. Make the customer feel special. One of the things, this was a great case study, and it's talked about by a guy by the name of Robert Cialdini. If you've ever read the book Influence or Persuasion, he's a master at social psychology. So Robert Cialdini talks about an Australian CEO, Australian tech company. They were based in Melbourne, and their client was based in Sydney, about a 2.5-hour flight. Well, the company had a tech solution, and their biggest client, 60% of their business across the way, there was a problem and there was an error with their software. The CEO grabbed his team of his best coders, his best programmers. He and them jumped on the plane, flew across to Sydney, and went there and fixed the problem. And they fixed it within a day. And amazingly, their client, this big client of theirs, was just like, that was incredible. Thank you so much. Your customer service is amazing. And to have the CEO come all the way over here just to take care of us, that was awesome. And the CEO made a huge mistake. The CEO turned and said, oh, no, don't worry about it. We do that for anybody. Now, anybody could have said that statement, but all of a sudden, what happened? They didn't feel quite as special. It actually left a bad taste in their mouth. And it was really interesting how the relationship developed after that. And the CEO made a bunch of blunders afterwards anyways. But it was something that making the customer feel special is one of the most powerful ways that you can retain that a difficult customer can become a great customer. Because think about this. Would you rather have them as a difficult customer that is buying your product, your services, or solution, or a customer of your competitors? Because that's really the dichotomy that you're looking at this point. I'd rather be able to bring them into my tribe, that they'll be a positive customer in the future, but that takes work and effort on our parts. Say thank you. Something so simple. If they bring a challenge to you, you know what? Thank you for bringing that to our attention. That's something definitely we're going to look into. You know what? Thank you for being a loyal customer. Thank you for taking the time to call me today to tell me your experience and your feelings. Demonstrating gratitude will make the other person feel better, but it will also reciprocity, the principle psychologically kick in that they will feel gratitude in turn for you listening and treating them with respect. We're getting close to the end here, a couple of more slides. So if you do have questions, I want you to be prepared so you can send those over to us and we'll be answering those just afterwards. But a couple more slides here. Number one is say sorry. Don't be afraid to say sorry. If somebody is experiencing pain, frustration, or anything else with your product, services, that experience is very, very real to them. Now, don't be like, sorry. That's probably not going to be the effect that you want, but something along the lines of, we're really sorry that this experience has been negative for you. How might we be able to fix that in the future? Now, notice I apologized and transitioned with a calibrated question that gives them the opportunity to solve their own problem. They're being heard. But don't be afraid to say sorry. Again, that University of Michigan, by apologizing and acknowledging whatever the challenges were, reduced by 33%. Huge, huge numbers. The last thing that I want to offer you is Disney's herd model. This is what, the happiest place on earth, one of the best customer service, one of the best customer experiences. They literally employ an army of experienced specialists, and they use the herd model. H, to hear. They listen. They practice active listening. They focus on understanding truly what the customer is about. The E, they empathize. They put themselves in their customer's shoes. They actually take and say, what if I had to wait in that line for that amount of time? What if I wasn't able to utilize this restroom? What if I wasn't? And they empathize with that customer experience. The same for like user design or user experience when you're building a website, same concept. The A, they apologize. They actually say, I'm sorry. And that's a really powerful way for them to build that true connection, that relationship with their audience. The R, they resolve it. However they might be able to do that. They're going to look at how they can fix that situation, and then the D is diagnose. They diagnose what created the problem in the first place. Is there a way for them to think through a better experience that gets rid of that problem so they don't have to worry about that again? That's the Disney herd model, and I want you to think about that when you're dealing with your customers. Are you hearing them? Are you empathizing with them? Are you apologizing? Are you resolving the issue? And are you diagnosing what created that issue in the first place? It's a really nice way to frame looking at those difficult customers. So I'm hoping that by filling your toolbox today, you're going to be able to build better relationships by using our concept of behavioral intelligence, explaining the behaviors, predicting them, but being able to influence them ethically and control our own behaviors. I'm hoping that you can use this to truly make an experience for your customers that builds loyalty, that builds brand, and ultimately it builds growth and profits. So I want to say thank you again so much for being with me in this session today, and for the conference organizers, MMK Systems, for having me out, but I'd be happy to answer any of your questions that you have. So thank you. Love for you to connect with me as well.